This brings us to our genus, the genus Homo. So Module 12 is going to cover early Homo, all the sad and sweet innovations that come with early Homo into Homo erectus and the major transitions that we notice with Homo erectus. Should be familiar here are simplified hominid phylogeny or cladogram of the hominids, right? Remember, a hominid is everything that postdates the split, Pan and Homo, and that occurred probably around 5 to 7, 5 to 8 million years ago. We talked about the earliest hominids or potential hominids right here at the base of the tree. We discussed the Australopithecines, and the Paranthropines were like a vegetarian offshoot. It looks like the Australopithecines, who are experimenting with possibly things like getting meat and animal byproducts, then evolve into our genus, the genus Homo. And the first two that I'll talk about in this lecture is Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis. And then the third part will be Homo erectus. And once you get to Homo erectus, you've lost all of the climbing adaptations. We see some of the climbing adaptations still in early Homo with curved hands, as well as having longer arms than legs, which is an ancestral trait, right? That's something that is more ape-like. You get to Homo erectus, all the climbing adaptations are lost, and now you have modern limb proportions similar to you walking around today. Enter in the Leakeys at the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. We talked about how, the Leakeys were like the first family of paleoanthropology when we talked about, paleontology in the early primate record. Well, the Leakeys go to the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania in the 40s and the 50s, and they start finding a bunch of stone tools that are associated with, humans 30, 40,000 years ago, and then, goodness, all the way to millions of years ago. So a nice sequence of stone tools, and they're curious, what creature made the stone tools, and they were confident that it was species in our genus, the genus Homo, because many people still assume that only the genus Homo is notable for making stone tools. And they actually then found Paranthropus boisei. We learned about that in the previous module. They found boisei, and then we're really excited at first because oh goodness, we found the fossil was making some of these tools. They actually looked at it more carefully. Remember that Paranthropus, the genus, right, covering boisei in East Africa and robustus in South Africa, they look like a very specialized vegetarian diet creature because they have a big sagittal crest like a gorilla and large chewing muscles and really big teeth. So they kept searching, and eventually they did find some of the material that they called Homo habilis. But if you look at the sequence events at the Olduvai Gorge, and we'll talk more about these tools in the next lecture video, more specifically. The sequence is they find these tools, a bunch of modified rocks, modified by human activity, and a bunch of cut mark bones, which insinuate that you need these modified chipped rocks to get into animal bone. And then they find Paranthropus boisei. It's not until later that they find Homo habilis until about 1960. Here's a species profile for Homo habilis, which Homo means man and habilis means handy. And the Leakeys found a few fossils attributed to Homo habilis, and they also found pieces of a hand. So that's kind of where it came from. Found by the Leakeys in 1960, at first at the Olduvai Gorge, but you can find material in the Kubifora. You can also find stuff in South Africa, we think. Temporal range 2.3 to about 1.6 million years. When you look at the cranium of specimens that are attributed to Homo habilis, like this one, goodness, you can see that the face and the head looks a lot more rounder, and there's a forehead that is beginning to emerge. The cranial capacity in the habilis specimens runs runs at about 600 cc's, and this is a brain that's much more sizable in terms of comparing it to the apes. It's much larger than even gorilla cranial capacity. You also have a smaller face, right? An orognathic face, one one that's much flatter, and the teeth are much smaller. Let's talk about another specimen and species designation that was created that's named Homo rudolfensis, and it was named after uh, a lake that was found around. It used to be named Lake Rudolph, but it was renamed Lake Turkana in Africa. It was found by Richard Leakey, who was marrying Louis Leakey's son in the 70s, and Richard thought that this skull looked completely different than the habilis material, and he thought it should be a different species. So it's really strange to think about two different species running around this part of the parts of East and South Africa, and two different species of our genus. So the big question is it one species or two? Let's talk about some of these ideas. The cranial capacity on this specimen, as well as others that are dubbed rudolfensis, are around 750 cc's. You can see the face is flat. It has a more prominent forehead, and it has a much larger, rounder cranium. So, some of these features, when you compare them to the habilis material, it's tough to really decide whether it's one species or two. Let's put them side by side. We got Homo habilis on the left and Homo rudolfensis on the right. 600 cc's on the left, 750 cc's on the right. The analysis that has been done on this material suggests that, of course, if we're looking at brain size, males typically have larger brains than females, and that's only because males typically have more body mass or larger body sizes. So we would think, just based on cranial capacity, which is a proxy for body size, that the one on the right has the largest body size. And the one on the left would have a smaller body size. But if you look at the skulls and the morphology, the shapes of the skulls, the one on the left has all of the robust features that we would notice and recognize with modern male skulls. Big brow ridge, big grooves on the back of the head for neck muscles, a little bit of a jutting out of the face. The one on the right has more gracile and softer features that we recognize with modern human females. So here's the controversy. The one on the left has a smaller body size, but has male features. The one on the right has larger body size, but female features. And this contradicts some of our ideas about the differences between the sexes. So some people think this difference is so great that they actually have to be two species. Some people suggest, well, actually it could be this wide variable species in our genus that we've never seen before. And so some people suggest it's one species. So you don't need to make a decision on this. Just be familiar that some in the study human evolution, that this is one of the biggest controversies concerning early Homo.